Hey students, it's Emily Poole. Let's talk about the commercial revolution. These European states have colonies now around the world. In order to maintain their power over their colonies and also just organize the amount of money that they have coming in, there are new innovations in banking and finance. My favorite to talk about is double entry bookkeeping because it just makes so much obvious sense in my 2024 brain. Double entry bookkeeping, you have two ledgers where you write down what you sold and how much you sold it for. Radical concept. You also have the development of joint stock companies like the Dutch East India Company, which is the wealthiest company in all of history, counting Amazon, and the British East India Company. You break down the term joint stock company, that explains how it works. You have a bunch of people buying stocks in a company so that if it does well, all of the people reap the dividends of profit. And if it doesn't do well, all of the people share in the loss rather than it falling on one person. New urban financial centers are growing as well, right? The cities that control trade coming back into Europe are then going to be very profitable. Places like Amsterdam in the Netherlands and London in England become these new financial hubs. But that deals with kind of like the emerging new financial elites in society. What about the average European? The majority of Europeans at this time are still deriving their livelihood from agriculture. And while plantation labor exists in the Americas, subsistence agriculture exists in Europe. Europeans are still relying on 2 or 3 field crop rotations in order to make sure that they have enough food for their family. But as wealthy Europeans are gaining more money because of their profitable business ventures, they start to buy up communal common land in what is known as the Enclosure Acts. Prior to the Enclosure Acts, you had this gigantic field that everyone in your cute little village could share for their livestock, could share for their agriculture. Wealthy elites start to buy up land and literally enclose the land. So I'm saying putting fences around the land in order to say that everything that's produced within this specific fenced area now belongs to me. Farmers could still work on that land that is now owned by someone else, but then would have to give part of their proceeds and profits to that landowner. But those who didn't want to or couldn't had to move to cities. So we see the beginnings of urbanization as well. And it's in the 1500s that European population finally reaches its pre-Black Plague levels. Increased population size leads to increased population pressure, especially in cities, who now have to regulate morality and deal with things like increased crime and poverty. So let me summarize everything that I've said so far. There's an emerging new social hierarchy in Western Europe. You have monarchs, people who control trade, and then kind of your average basic European. In Eastern Europe, that is not necessarily the case. In Eastern Europe, that social hierarchy is still determined by landed aristocracy. So while there's this emerging middle class of wealthy new trading elites in Western Europe, in the East, that's not the case. It's just the people who have had power and land for a long time. And while they are moving toward commercial agriculture in the West, in the East, serfdom is still codified. The average European in the bottom rung of that social hierarchy, life is not always great. There are economic pressures and there are environmental pressures like the Little Ice Age. How do people respond to this? They delay marriage and also childbearing. Having fewer mouths to feed makes your life maybe a little bit easier because then you can at least provide for yourself and your partner. Over time, that actually ultimately does improve working conditions for families as the population evens out. Overall, Europe is shifting toward a money-based economy with new innovations in banking and finance, which is great for people who are involved in or controlling trade. The average European, they are still living their subsistence agriculture life. Maybe some of them are starting to move to cities, but they're delaying childbearing in order to make sure that they have enough money for themselves and their small family. I hope that helped. And as always, you can do it. I believe in you.